Hey, New York Jet fans from all around the world. Welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast, the show that delivers you all your Jets content. Here are your hosts, John, Adnan, and Monty. All the best to the New York Jet fans. J-E-T-S, Jets, 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 go Jets.
Welcome to a weekend recording of Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast. We're your hosts, John, Adnan, and Monty. How's everyone doing today?
Well, I kind of like recording on a Saturday morning. No need for unnatural light. I think it's a good deal.
Yeah. It is. And we go to this clip to start our day.
I'm here with Connor Hughes. Connor, it's the start of the Jets' 3-day mandatory minicamp. Two guys are not here, both unexcused. Let's start with the defensive guy, Haason Reddick.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise, I think, for the Jets that they're not here. Robert Saleh said last week he expected him to be in attendance for mandatory minicamp because Reddick wants a new contract. He's paid $15 million annually. He's somebody who has the fourth most sacks in the NFL since 2020, and he wants to be paid guys like Nick Bosa, like Brian Burns, like Josh Allen, which is a contract near 28, 29, 30 million per year. Now, what's interesting about this current situation is that when the Jets traded for Haason Reddick, they made it very clear to him that they were not going to redo his contract before the year. He was going to play out on this deal, and then they were going to reassess where things were after the season. If Reddick played as the Jets expected him to, he was going to get that mega money extension either from the Jets, which the Jets were hoping for, or elsewhere. But aside from what they were going to do before the year, it was just going to be minor adjustments. Think about what the Giants did with Darius Slayton, where they added some additional incentives into his contract to make some more money. That's all they were willing to do with Reddick, and he was on board with that, so much so that I talked to multiple sources who said he told people within the Jets building, or multiple sources inside the building who talked to Reddick, said that he told them that his plans were to attend the offseason program and minicamp. Well, something changed, obviously, between now and then because he skipped all of the offseason program, all of OTAs, and now he is a no-show for minicamp. So this is absolutely something worth monitoring moving forward because the Jets really have no idea when Reddick's going to show up.
Robert Saleh does say he expects him to be ready to go for training
this isn't a guy you're worried about shape.
Yeah,
he's going to show up in shape.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other guy who was we're a little surprised with. Number 8, Aaron Rodgers. He's not here with an unexcused absence.
Yeah, and it's going to create hysteria because he's Aaron Rodgers and everything he does is very polarizing, and people want to hate on him for a number of reasons, and this is a reason provided to potentially hate him. And I don't think Robert Saleh did him too many favors by saying it was unexcused, but I think it is important to remember that for all of the voluntary workouts that have been here, the practices that Aaron Rodgers did not have to attend, the practices that Aaron Rodgers did not attend when he was quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, he has been here. And I've talked to a number of players who have all stressed how much stability he's provided to the offense, the leadership. He's obviously looked tremendous, Janae, when he's been on the field. We've seen that ourselves at the media open workout. So he's not here right now. He's not expected to be here for the rest of minicamp, but he will be here for the start of training camp. And it's probably ultimately going to be much ado about nothing. I don't think that, honestly, when all is said and done, Reddick and Rodgers missing these minicamp practices, I don't think it's really going to impact their performance during the season much at all. But them not being here, obviously, it's a headline to talk about on day one.
I mean, obviously, Rodgers is his 20th year.
Yeah.
I can say this, though. You and I.
Matching again.
Shocking.
Yeah, so that's an interesting clip. I mean, very interesting. I mean, I guess let's just read the room a little bit. Adnan, we said that we weren't going to panic until July. What are you thinking right now?
I wouldn't say panic. I'm just kind of prior to the Connor report about they had a deal, they had an understanding, and then something changed. Like that to me is frustrating, right? So I don't know. And look, I believe Connor. I think he's always kind of spot on about what he's talking about. So if this is something that Reddick did, kind of negotiated a trade, what seems like in bad faith, right? Like if he was the one that said, yeah, we're all good, totally understand, let's get the trade done, I'm excited to come in and start working, and then the trade gets done, and then he flips his stance, that's annoying to me. And you know, I just feel like as a brand new player on a team that does have Super Bowl aspirations, like you got to be there. And to pull something like this, I don't know if it's panic but it's annoyance on my end. It's a bad look for him, especially if this played out exactly the way, Connor Hughes described. Then it's just a bad look, and it seems like a guy who's, not all in my opinion. But then you see the tweet that he put out, John, and, he's kind of refuting all of that. Now, did that tweet come out after or before Connor's report? I'm not sure. We can figure that out in a second.
That's a good question. So I'm going to share a screen on that.
Yeah.
Let's check that out.
Yeah, let's check that out. So this is the tweet that Adnan is talking about. But basically, Reddick said at 2:26 p.m. on the 12th, stop believing the foolery y'all see on these social media apps and news outlets running crazy narratives and y'all eating it up.
So that was that tweet. And when did Connor put his out?
He put his out. Well, that video is on the 13th, which is after the fact.
Which is after. What about his tweet before that? Was that on the 13th as well?
No, this is.
I think that was before.
Let's see the timestamp on it. He had a lot of posts on the 12th. That was interesting, but that was because it was mini camp.
Big news day.
Well, I guess it must have been like early in the day that he didn't show up, right?
So the tweet from Connor was on June 11th. The Jets and Haason Reddick were believed to be on the same page, so that was on June 11th. So that was the day before.
So Reddick can be assumed as kind of refuting directly Connor Hughes's stuff.
Right.
And maybe not Connor, because it's a little bit of everybody, right?
Or
so
narratives that came out of that, because that's what kicked everything off was the Connor Hughes report.
Yeah, I'd say whomever reported that, Connor, and I'm sure some of the national media, took off with that. So, whomever it was, he was just refuting anything that was heard. But then at the same time, why aren't you here? Right? If that's the point, if it's, they're making up a narrative, it's not true. The only narrative I see is you aren't at OTAs or mandatory minicamp. That's all I see. I don't see anything else. Right? And so the way you refute that is by showing up. And so that's frustrating to me. And that's kind of, again, not panic, just really frustrating to see a guy act this way. It's not like he got traded to the Panthers, a bad team that isn't going anywhere. This is a team with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. And it's really, 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 I'll say it a million times, very frustrating to me and very annoying.
Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah. So, I've kind of like dug into this a little bit over on, just kind of doing research, speaking about it on the other podcasts and stuff like that. It's not as cut and dry. I thought at first, I was like looking at the Connor Hughes report, it really kind of paints a picture of, kind of one thing was said and then another thing was kind of done, and that Reddick's kind of like this kind of a bad guy, and he does have a little bit of a reputation as kind of like a "F you pay me" mercenary type in a way, although I'm not 100% sure that that's fully founded, and I'll talk about what I mean in just a minute. But there's two narratives here, right? There's the narrative that Reddick is this, kind of selfish guy who's just going rogue at this moment, said one thing, doing another. And then there's the narrative that, that this is actually within the realm of what's kind of expected in this situation. And I'll explain that. So essentially, first of all, per the actual the rankings of edge rushers and their contract sizes and how much they're being paid, he's the 19th highest paid at the edge rusher position. All right. Now, per ESPN rankings, he was 7th in pass rush win rate in 2023, which is higher than Bryce Huff, and he was double teamed at a higher rate than Bryce Huff, and higher than Brad Chubb, and higher than Brian Burns, and he was double teamed at a higher rate than Brian Burns as well. He's also 15th in sacks in 2023. So he's pretty high up there in terms of elite or sub-elite pass rushers. But he's the 19th highest paid. Okay. So he definitely, on one side, I understand he's done what he needs to do to get his money, and he's made, over 50 million career earnings, but he hasn't necessarily got, the big bag he's looking for. And I can understand and empathize him wanting to kind of, get what he's worth. That's part one. Part two, though, which is a lot more pertinent to this situation, is he needs to protect himself, right? His contract is not guaranteed. His 14 million, there's nothing guaranteed in his contract at all at this point, with the way his contract is structured. So what if he pulls a Carl Lawson from 21, blows out his Achilles or something like that in practice? That could literally be devastating, not only to the Jets, but to his career. You know what I mean? So I get it. Like, what I will say is, the communication should have been better. This shouldn't be a surprise. This should have all been discussed. But maybe he was kind of being a little disingenuous to try to get the bag, and maybe thinking that they would know he was going to do this, or that they should expect that he's going to do this. Because in reality, what's kind of happening now is he's protecting himself, likely saying, I don't want to get hurt because I don't want to participate. What he should though do is, I'm going to come, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to participate. Like, so he should be there in the building, but like not do anything, and just say, hey, look, I'm making a business decision. I'm going to be here because I want to show in good faith that I'm here, but I can't put my career in jeopardy, without something being done. So ultimately, I think they offer him they do a little something for him with some guaranteed money, add some incentives on his situation, and then make this go away.
But and just a really quick, Monty, I think Connor Hughes had said that, right? I think part of the understanding was, hey, we are going to do right by you, but also not give you a big contract right now. Right. Yeah. So that sounds like that was part of the understanding, that just said, hey, listen, we don't want you to play without any guarantees or without, adding some incentives or maybe whatever it is. So it sounds like that was part of the original understanding.
I don't know. I think
now he's saying, I want the big contract.
I don't know if that part was necessarily definitely understood and agreed upon by both parties. But even if it was, I think he just kind of was like, listen, I need it before I can step on the field, just so I protect myself and my family. John, what do you think, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm actually very in between both of you on this one, which I think is kind of fascinating. I'm like looking up a couple things on the side just to see, like, hey, how much has this guy earned in his career, right? And all that, and basically just doing the math, right? Because he's looking for the mega contract, right? Because these mega contracts are coming out, right, and all that. And Connor said something that was very interesting, that he has the fourth most sacks since 2020, essentially, in the league, which basically says and he was a second team All Pro in 2022, right?
Across multiple teams too.
Yeah, all that. So basically what kind of money is he looking for, right? And I'm in the camp where I think the understanding was kind of clear, right? And I think Monty is a little bit more right, that he's just kind of preserving everything because obviously it's a contract year, right? And all that, and he's trying to save himself, which also saves the Jets if he gets hurt during a Carl Lawson situation, right? So I kind of get it on that one, but I'm also leaning towards a little bit more of a panic mode. As well, not as panicked as maybe Adnan is, but I'm starting to get a little bit closer, and the reason for it is because I'm just doing the math, right? What's it gonna cost to get him in the building, right, and play, right? That's basically kind of what I'm thinking right now, and what does that cost us in the long term, right? Bear in mind, there's going to be contracts coming up in 2 or 3 years that are I think much more long-term plays, right? The Garrett Wilsons, Jermaine Johnsons, Sauce, of course, is going to be the highest paid corner ever.
And Brees comes up sooner than them, so you got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, but Brees will probably
be cheaper.
He'll probably be tagged.
Or tagged, yeah.
He'll be tagged, and then like it'll be like another deal or something like that, right? Just because that's the only way I could really see it going down with him. The Christian McCaffrey deal is a little concerning because I think that's what's going to be the benchmark for Brees at some point. 100%. But anyway, so let me just kind of read some stuff here about Haason Reddick's pay. So he's made through last year $51.1 million. He's due to make another like 15 and a half, which is going to get him to about 66.6 lifetime, right? If the next contract that he's going to get, right, is probably going to put him in like, it's going to sound crazy, but I think he's targeting like the $30 million a year range.
Yeah, I think like 28 or something probably is about market for him.
He's targeting, I think I would be good with like maybe 4 for 100 at this point.
That's a long contract for an older dude.
It is, but the edge position, it actually ages fairly well relative to like other things. You know what I mean? It it's not like a QB obviously ages the best, right? Running back ages probably the worst, right? Cornerback doesn't age very well. Wide receiver kind of starts to fall off at 31, right? Let's call it that. But an O-line ages very well, right? It's just try and chew. That one ages very well with experience, right? But edge actually does okay. I mean, like you've seen guys do things like Bruce Smith and like Reggie White, and they're basically just doing, you know, they were still continuing high success at the end. And obviously it ages a little bit differently now that the defensive end edge position body type's a little different, right? It's basically like more lean and quick, right? Versus just like brute strength and all that. So like I think basically like I think he's going to be fine for at least 2 or 3 years under a new contract, which would be after this year, right? So I don't know. Maybe you just do 3 years 75 or 3 years 80, and you do a 2-year guarantee, and you just kind of cut it at that point.
I don't know, man. I don't think the Jets are going to do that with all these big contracts.
I wouldn't do it either, but
I don't think it's the prudent move. I think because think about it. If you think about it, the Jets have a lot of leverage here, right? Because he has to play. It's a contract year for him. He's got to show, you know, that he's still doing it, that he's still doing it at a high level. He's got a significant amount of incentive. He can't just not play and expect that it doesn't hurt his value massively. If he wants to get his full check, if he wants that big boy bag, he's gotta play this year. So the Jets have him under contract. He's got to play for us. I think what the Jets can do
they could just let it play out and see what happens, right?
I think what they can do to get him to play is they fully guarantee the rest of his contract now and give him some incentives on top. I think that's the way you get.
I would love that. I would love that. I just don't think that's what he's motivated at right now.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other piece of it, right, is that from the Jets' perspective, would they make this trade knowing they had to give him a 3-4 year deal, 2-year deal after
they would have just paid Bryce off. They would have just paid Bryce off,
right?
Yeah.
So
well,
I think
here's the question too. You got to ask yourselves, like, who's better? Like Bryce Huff right now. Let's just go back to this real quick. Sure, Bryce Huff. First off, Monty admitted that he's cheating on us with another podcast way earlier. No one caught that, so I'm just gonna kind of go with that. But Bryce Huff is strictly a pass guy, right, and not a hot like the two, right? That like basically pass and run, which like Jermaine is, right, and Haason is more right than Bryce, right? So like it's a little different in my opinion because like basically for Bryce you're paying for just 50 like 17 million a year. You're really just paying for 1/2 of it, right? Or like so let's say 60% because pass rush is like that and like maybe a little run. But Haason you're basically paying for like 80 to 90% snaps, right? That's the kind of guy you'd be paying for, right, on that one. So it's a little different in my opinion.
But I think that what the Jets were looking at was right. They have a 1 to 2 year window with Rodgers, right? Which Reddick's contract aligned perfectly with that, right? That's why the thought was, let's play it out this year, give you some guarantees, and then we'll go from there, right? Mm-hmm. And so now my point is, forget about re-signing Bryce Huff, right? Forget about that. They could have went ahead and made another trade, right? They could have done other things as opposed to trading for Reddick if they knew that I'm not playing without a 2-year, 3-year, $80 million contract.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, if that was on the table, I think they would have went another direction, right? If that's on the table, why not make a trade for a younger guy that's out there and then pay them? You know, so I just think that on his end, this looks very disingenuous.
Also on the side of the Jets is, we have Michael Clemens, we have Jermaine Johnson, we have Will McDonald, 2 first-round young stud, edge rushers. Now, necessarily, that isn't the best necessary situation that we want to be in, to lean on those guys. But if worse came down to it, I think we could get by with what we have there. So if you add it all together, I think that Reddick definitely has to play, regardless of if he was disingenuous or not. I think the Jets have the cards, have most of the leverage. I think that, the deal gets done, and that I think this is not as panic worthy as people are thinking, and as you guys might be feeling. I definitely think that he's just doing what he's got to do. This is the reason for that tweet. I think he's maybe even communicated this to the Jets management that, look, we got to get this done. I can't be out here sacrificing my body, risking myself in hard practice without, there being something for me. And I think that's what it is. I don't necessarily think that I think that he would, of course, rather get the bag from us. He'd rather get the bag, but probably from whoever, but I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I think where we're getting at is the basic thing, right? They're trying to figure out a compromise at this point, right? Because both sides have their concerns, right?
Right.
Which seems to be very obvious, which would explain why the contract hasn't been dished out yet, because they're trying to figure it out, right? Which is why he hasn't shown up, because obviously trying to keep that body healthy, right? And safe, right? And obviously he's still working out. I don't think anyone's questioning that whatsoever. I mean,
no, not at all.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go to a Haason Reddick shirtless pick, but it's intimidating, if that makes sense, right? And all that. So basically, I'm just I think, and the media is kind of blowing it up, and it's kind of interesting that Reddick did make that tweet. Stop believing the foolery you see on social media. It's maybe it's because this is what's going on.
It's
right?
because it's the Jets. That's why.
But it's because of the Jets. And he's trying, and basically in his tweet, he's trying to basically calm everyone down a little bit while not putting too much detail into it, because obviously the detail that we just went into is probably what's going on right now, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, so I'm gonna be a 3.5 panic level out of 10 right now. I'm gonna keep it at that. Crossing the 5 is panic. I'm saving that for July. Adnan, where do you stand on a 1 to 10 scale?
So I have 2 different scales. On a scale of panic, at about a 5. On a scale of annoyance with the whole situation, I'm 100 out of 10. I am so furious that it came to this. It's just ridiculous to me that whatever side, however, this should have been taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating.
It's the most Jets thing to happen.
Right.
It is. And
if it wasn't the Jets, if we weren't Jets fans and this was just the deal, I think we'd be way less annoyed and panicked, right?
Yeah, no one would really care, but our AFC rivals are obviously relishing this, having.
Who cares? The season doesn't start yet. A song's going to come in, probably get 14 sacks, and we're just going to be we're going to totally forget about all this shit.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? I don't like being the freaking talk of the town for being kind of a little bit of a laughing stock, and it's already in June. You know what I mean? Yes, it's only June, but also it's already June, and this shit's already, it's already kind of looking like a clown show in some ways. However, that said, my panic level is lower than both you guys. I'm still at a 2.5. I think they get the deal done. I trust in Trader Joe. I think he knew going into this, you had to. You can't be Joe Douglas, as supposedly smart and experienced as he is, and not expect that this would happen. No guaranteed money on his contract. You had to expect, he's hopped around teams. You had to expect this to some degree. And I just feel that the Jets organization must have anticipated this and are just working with him to get it done. and it's in the same ballpark of nothing burger as the Rodgers situation.
Right. So you just went like a half point less than me, just so you can say you were less, even though basically 2.5 is basically 3.
You said 3.5. I thought.
I said 3.
Oh, okay. Well, then 2 then. Fine. Just so you'll shut up. Also, I wasn't cheating. I was on the Jets Afterburners podcast because Liam and Dan were nice guys that invited us, and they plugged our podcast, actually. And they're going to be on the show at some point in the future.
That's what I was looking for you to say. Not so much upset that you were cheating on us. I mean, like, I don't care if you want to stick your dick somewhere else. It's totally fine. Yeah, but anyway, just to recap real quick, right? So obviously, part of that little bit that Rodgers had was, that Connor Hughes said was also about Rodgers, right? And obviously he's just everyone, and he just like downplayed the shit out of it, as everyone should, right? But some of the media won't because it's Aaron Rodgers, as Connor Hughes said. As my number 1 overall pick would say, right? He said it right. All right. So in terms of the Rodgers thing, I'm thinking no big deal. We could just move on from that, right? And just say that we talked about Aaron Rodgers today, just to say it and try and get clicks like the little whores that we are, right? Can anyone just like say something besides a little smirk from that? Adnan's just like maybe a little bit annoyed by that. Maybe I don't know. I say it's nothing with Rodgers. We're gonna be fine. He was through 3 different sessions of OTAs.
Yeah. So listen, Sauce Gardner said it best. He said he's been there from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of OTAs. He's been there for all the shit he didn't have to be there for, right? He clearly told the organization up front,
months ago,
that this was going to be a thing he had to go to, whatever the hell it is, another darkness retreat or whatever the hell he's got to do to get his mind right. I don't care. I just want him to come back at least, 80% of what he normally is. And if this is what helps him get there, fine. I'm not even slightly worried about it. I think it's a way blown out of proportion. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. And I'm frankly sick of the Jets being like the top headline of the media to kind of kick on us like something actually happened, like there's this narrative, he's creating the distractions after saying he didn't want distractions and blah blah. Like, no, he's not. He was voted in 2023 by the players of the Jets team the most inspirational player on the team. That's what he was voted by the Jets team, by his teammates. So they're voting him that. Like, how is he a distraction? If anything, he's an inspiration because they literally said he is. So he is there. He's there when he didn't have to be there. He's got his connection with Wilson right back to where it was from what we can tell in the limited practices we've seen so far. He's got, he's taken kind of the reins as the leader of this team. And yes, you can kind of say, oh, well, it's a mandatory. He definitely should have been there, but he said it way, way up front. It's only an issue because it's mandatory. And I think Saleh, if anything, should take the heat on this for dropping the ball with the messaging. I think the messaging was just bad. They should have just came out and just said, oh, we knew about it. That's it. Oh, we knew about it. No problem. Why was he not here? Oh, it was something that we knew about.
I thought he did kind of say that, but then just use the word inexcused and people.
Yeah, well, he said inexcused, unexcused. First of all, inexcused is not a word. It's unexcused. So he's saying he's making up make believe. Yeah, he's making up make believe words. No, you were right. I'm saying Saleh actually said inexcused, which is not a word. Inexcused absence is not a thing. It's unexcused. But anyway, that's just semantics. He just said, the wrong way. It should have been a very put their foot down, next question kind of situation where it's like, oh yeah, he's not here. He's been at every OTA. There's no commitment issue from him at all. He told us up front, next question. Should have just been like that, but instead he kind of went back and forth and this and that, and it's just like it's just a pain. You know what I mean? And I hate it.
I think that in terms of, the national media coverage on this, I don't think it mattered what Robert Saleh said. Just the fact that Rodgers isn't there was going to cause this. And kind of on the flip side to because I know both of you don't think it's a big deal. It's nothing. I get it. But 31 of 32 NFL quarterbacks were in camp. You're telling me Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and all these guys wouldn't have things they'd rather be doing this weekend or last week than be in the sweltering heat in a mini camp in June? Of course they would. But they made it a point to not schedule anything that week, right? Just like all of us that have jobs, there are certain times in our jobs where we just can't take off, right? And so when something is mandatory, to me, you got to be there unless it's something absolutely unavoidable. And this doesn't sound to me like it's something that was unavoidable. So on that side of it, again, on a panic scale, I'm 1 to 10, I'm at a negative. On a frustrated and annoyed scale, I'm over a billion. Like,
you're always a billion. You're the most frustrating person in the world. He is Charlie Day. Someone said he was Charlie Day, basically, in our group from Always Sunny.
All of these things that are happening around the Jets, right? Haason Reddick and then Rodgers, these, the way that the team is handling, it's this big mystery where he is. Nobody can say because of security. What are you talking about? Right? The other thing is, if Rodgers just said, hey man, listen, I'm at this thing that is only going to be around, that's not going to be around again for the next 25 years. This is the only time I
think if he does say where he's at, number one, you're going to have all the media there, whatever it is. Number two, number two, you're going to have all the media. Number two, it's going to be even more of an issue because no matter what it was, it could be, he's going to Christ's second coming. He's coming. He's going to reappear on Earth after 2,000 years. It doesn't matter what the hell it was.
Yep.
He was going to get criticized for it.
Right.
Yeah. What if it was hypothetically? What if it was like, I don't know, just something like a wedding that he scheduled, like you know what I mean, or something like that. Like, oh my god, yeah. I'm on Monty's board on that. Like that, but Monty made a good point.
I get it that like you can't be hyper specific where he is. I mean, Samini is assuming that Samini comes out and says, I think he could be in Egypt at the Sphinx. Like, what? Like, that's the whole thing is now people are speculating because 3 or 4 years ago, when Rodgers was dating Danica Patrick, he said that, Egypt is a great place. I'd love to stand in between the paws of the Sphinx. So now Samini is running with that, right? Like, so I think just the point is, like, there has to be some transparency when you're a multi-millionaire athlete and you're the face of a franchise. You're the face of a franchise where every little thing is going to be chaotic and dramatic.
But let's zoom out for a second. Like, how important even is this? You remember the Jets canceled minicamp last year? They literally canceled this. This whole thing that everyone's losing their shit over was so important. It literally was canceled.
But they had an extra week of practice last year because of the Hall of Fame game. That's why they canceled it. It wasn't because they canceled it and said we also don't have an additional week of practice.
Sure,
so I get it there, right? Like there was an intent.
I'm just saying just saying it's an event that you can, you can make it up somewhere else. You can make it up with. Yeah. With him just working out on his own. There's other he can
and also
maybe host a thing at his house for him and Malachi Corley and Garrett Wilson and Lazard, and they just toss the ball and do ayahuasca and pretend sing kumbaya, whatever. Yeah,
and plus he was at phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of the OTAs and all that. So this team has been grinding, which. Yeah. It's fine. And also that mandatory minicamp day, there was a media day that was involved in it too and all that. So like, I kind of get that too, so I'm on board with Monty on this one here. I am not.
It doesn't make sense.
I am not really annoyed or anything like that. I mean, as long as Rodgers plays, and he looks like he smells like, I don't know, like beechwood, I'm good with that.
I'm at a 1. But listen,
I'm at a half. So
that said, yeah, fuck you. That said, I will say if more things keep piling on to both of these situations, like if we start seeing like, oh, Reddick unfollows the Jets, and oh, Reddick is putting out all these tweets like, low key sneak dissing on Joe Douglas and all this. So if we start seeing that sort of stuff, I'll jump to like an 8 or a 9 real fast.
Yep.
At this moment, though, I'm very low in my panic on both of those things because I think this is just the Jets are a big media market. We have a shit ton of reporters who don't have dick to do. They're just sitting around twiddling their thumbs, begging for something like this to blow up into a huge story so that they could be the first one who jumped on it.
Right. And also mind you this, this is the slowest time of sports right now. It's not only, I mean, like, yeah, the NBA finals and NHL finals are going on, but they're freaking snooze fest.
But I would also say, right, like from the media, outside of Cimini, the local guys are all saying, hey, it's cool. He's been here. The team doesn't. It's the national people, right? The Colin Cowherds, the talking heads on ESPN, right? All those guys, they're the ones who are out here, replaying that clip of Rodgers saying needs to get all the bullshit out of the building that has nothing to do with winning. They're the ones that are running with that. So I don't think it's the local guys. It's that national perspective behind the Jets, which I think plays into that frustration, right, Monty? You said it. Like, why does this they haven't made the playoffs in 13 years. They haven't won a Super Bowl in over 50 years, right? And I just find it interesting that, like, the Jets and Jet fans never get the grace that the Lions did. Oh, the Lions, we're so happy for them.
No one cares about the Lions like that. No one cares about the Lions like that. It's the Jets. Jets are the Jets.
But I'm just saying,
New York,
right? It's it's that national perspective of, every little thing that happens with the Jets is a clown show, a dumpster fire. If this were happening with the Chiefs and Mahomes was out and Chris Jones was holding out, it would be, it's the Chiefs. Don't worry about it.
T. Higgins held out. T. Higgins was holding out for 3 days. No one cared. Yeah. T. Higgins has been holding out this whole time.
Time out about the Chiefs real quick. Yeah, I mean, the T. Higgins thing is way worse than anything Rodgers. And hang on. But the thing, actually, it's funny you were talking about Kansas City real quick. I mean, like, the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing was everywhere last year, right? I'm just going to reemphasize once again, and we're going to end it very quick on the Rodgers talk right now. So, like, this is the slowest time in sports right now. NBA Finals has had the lowest viewership it has in a while because these playoffs have been really boring, right? Even the conference finals were really boring, low market teams outside of Boston, and Boston's just not interesting enough for anyone to give a shit, right? NHL playoffs, right? Once the Rangers got knocked out, it really did fade. And this has been the most boring NHL finals, right? By far, right? So there's nothing there and no one really cares about hockey. Baseball's been really boring this whole time, right? The only thing that's really hitting the media market right now is like the stuff about the NFL because it's way more interesting. And then also the WNBA stuff with Caitlin Clark and all that, which, by the way, like, they are force feeding all that shit to us as much as they can, right?
That's been more interesting
but I still don't give a shit though, right? Because it's really not interesting. They're just doing it for literally anything because, like, they're just trying to. The sports is really trying to elevate that, and I think it's gonna blow up in the end. But that's another thing. And one thing about Egypt, I was like watching something about like how all the pyramids are basically like Orion's belt shaped and all that, like all of them around the world, including the ones in Egypt and Mexico. But that's a whole other thing. I'm sure Rod.
You watching Joe Rogan?
It was some other guy that like brought it up on Instagram that I was watching. That was interesting. I'm sure Rodgers is looking into that, and that's why he's out basically. But anyway, moving on, for the love of God. Moving on
into that.
Yeah, I think he is. Moving on, I want to kind of go over this thing that happened that was revealed, and I believe it was based on what the Rams kind of do with their little thing, right, and all that. But basically, the Rams were trying to move up, and the trade candidate they were looking to kind of move up with was the New York Jets. And it was to get Brock Bowers. But basically, this is kind of what we're seeing. Originally, there was one package that was just the first and the second for the Jets first, and then the Rams tried to add value to it. But basically, the Jets were they got an offer. The Rams called us. They were going to offer us pick 19, pick 52 and a third rounder pick 99 in exchange for our first and our sixth, which is basically nothing, right? Now, I think this is interesting for a lot of different reasons. I'm going to kind of want to see, what your guys' reactions are to it first. First, whether or not the Jets should have done it, yes or no, and then why both sides make sense to say yes to it and to say no, right? And I'm going to start with Monty on this one, just so Adnan could just cool the fuck down after, just blowing his brains out. So Monty, go for it.
I would have taken it, and I would have taken it for the same reason that I was, for the basically because of who I was interested in at the time of the draft. Fatanu didn't go till 20th, so he would have still been available, and he was still within my list of guys that are good enough to kind of start, can kind of be versatile, can kind of do different things. I know we ended up with Fashanu, and I'm totally happy with him. I think he's a beast. I think he's going to do great. But I think, if you had any, of those top tackles from Fatanu up, with the tutelage of Tyron Smith, they would have been great. And then now we get 2 other picks. Sign me up.
Yeah, I think, I'm a little torn on that, right? Because I think, Fashion was the best left tackle, I think, on the board in terms of pure left tackle, and that's including alts. If you want to have a debate there, okay, I get it. And I think their biggest area of need going into the draft was left tackle. So I am torn on it because, yes, I do think having additional picks would have been very helpful. You look at who was available. Like you said, Fatanu was still there. There are a lot of players that they could have went with, especially him. He might have been the pick at 19. You look at the Raiders wouldn't have picked Bowers, obviously, but they could have went, Fashanu there, and then it's kind of the same draft board anyway.
Correct. That's why I was.
And then when you look at the second round, what was it, pick 52, right? That was the pick that the Colts traded up for to draft Adonai Mitchell, right?
Yes.
So that's the guy that would have been there.
And I was a huge Adonai Mitchell guy too.
Yeah, and I think guys after that, there were some good players that still would have been available, there. And then you look at pick 99, which is the second to last pick in the third round. The Jets still would have been able, they would have had some more flexibility with the Malachi Corley pick, because if they did go Mitchell, I don't think they'd go Corley there. But, they would have had flexibility with that pick. They also, at 99, they could have went with, who the Rams took, Cameron Kitchens, a safety out of Miami that they do have a need for at that position.
Yes.
So I totally see if you make that trade, it offers you a lot of flexibility. They would have had 2 third rounders, a second that they didn't have, and still a top 20 pick. Now I think that this has been leaked. Douglas better have been right.
Yeah.
Douglas, Fashanu better be your 10-year left tackle.
And Corley better be good too.
And Corley better be good as well. Exactly. Because that's the guy who they were targeting. So I think this puts pressure on Douglas now that this was put out there. But at the same time, I give him credit for sticking to his guns and getting the guys that he believed in. So now it has to work out.
Yeah.
Interesting conversation, but I think at the end of the day, I think the Jets did the right thing.
Yeah. You know what? I think about it a little bit, right? First off, I think actually the Jets were keen-ho on not getting Fatanu because he's more of a guard projected than a tackle, right? To be fair.
Yeah.
I think the pick that would have made the most sense. Well, I guess Morgan went after, right? Who's the Arizona guy, who's definitely a at least a step down from Fashanu.
So probably
but yeah, well, no, Guyton would have been probably the
Guyton.
more pure left tackle. That's the guy that Dallas took and also came after, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of how I feel about it, right? Fashanu, they were probably so gun-ho on Fashanu, being like, hey, this is like a real franchise left tackle. And I think everyone was in agreement with that going in, right? So I think they were just like, no. And like, given that the Jets are all in, right? Pretty much, right? And like, yeah, like he may not see starting time, right? And all that, but obviously he could because of injury history, and all that stuff. But I think the Jets realized like, hey, elite over like a bunch of quality, right? In this situation. So I think and like I'm sure they waited out, right? But they were just like, hey, that's a blue chip guy, right? Versus the other guys who may not be blue chip. I mean, like, who knows? Draft is still a lottery, right? But I think the Jets were just thinking, like, yeah, this was the guy we really wanted. So, like, let's do it. I mean, I don't know if Fashanu was at the Senior Bowl, right? They were allowing junior. He was a senior anyway, right? But basically, like, there's that clip that Ulbrich had, and I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it. But basically, like, they bleeped out the name that he was saying that guy's got to be a fucking Jet, basically, But I believe that's who they were talking about. He was talking about at the Senior Bowl when he was coaching that, right? So, like, I think they were just like, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, we want that, and we're gonna take that, right? So I'm okay with it, and I know that there would have been a lot of good talent out there. And as far as like getting a receiver, I think the Jets were very gun ho on Malachi Corley. I think they were just like, that's our guy, right? And so far everything we've kind of seen in the OTAs and the mini camps kind of show shows that maybe they're right on that, and that's a really great fit. Plus Rodgers was really happy with him too, and really wanted him too. So you know what? Like, I think they're okay passing on. I guess it's Mitchell, right? Which would have been probably the play in the second round. It's kind of crazy that whole second round was so defensive, right? Remember, we were talking about it as it happened because we were like, when are we gonna get a receiver, right? And all that. But that's just, I guess you could have gone. Let's just talk about other, like, they could have probably packaged and move up if they wanted to get a different guy, right? There could have been the Buffaloes pick Coleman, McConkey, Leggett, maybe in Carolina, maybe something to trade back into the late first, and all that. So like, I'm cool with what they did in the draft, right? And like, I don't want to play the what if game so much anymore, right? On that one, I think they got what they thought was the best left tackle. Yep. I think he was number 2, maybe number 3. I mean, we faded on it because of the little injury shit, that happened a little bit. Maybe we forgot a little bit. And I think if you go through our podcast where, you'll see that a little bit more. And we were thinking maybe versatility was the way to go versus just like pure left tackle. But in the end, like, probably he looks like he's going to be a beast. Too.
I'm just leaning kind of more towards Adnan said, it's I like the way the draft played out for us. I think it was very good. But again, I think especially a guy like Joe D with his proven, or not necessarily proven, but strong ability to pick. However, the fact that he's had some notable busts in his past as well, the way it went he has to be right pretty much mostly. If we would have done this trade, then it gives him a little bit more room to be wrong. And humans are not infallible. We know we have our flaws. I would have liked, because again, it's like you're giving a great shooter more attempts, and that's usually going to translate into more successes. But it's very possible that we have at least a semblance of the 2022 draft, where we cleaned house. And that might happen again, and then that will vindicate Joe Douglas. But so I think he's got more pressure on him to be right. I like the way the draft played out, but this was definitely interesting. So we'll see how it plays out now.
Yeah, and I'm also just gonna note this too. Like, in reality, if you really think about Joe Douglas's draft history, right? The Gase draft was that COVID draft, and there's like nothing basically available to basically evaluate these guys. Plus, everything was trying to fit with what Adam Gase was. I kind of give him, even though that was his worst draft by far, right? In all these, I kind of give him a little bit of a pass on it. Also, given that like Mekhi Becton looked good in his rookie year, right? And it just didn't work out with the injuries, right? Mims obviously didn't play out. But like you don't know what influence Gase had, right? But like I like to when I think of Joe Douglas's draft history, I like to look at with this regime and this coaching staff and what they want to fit into this, right? 2021 ABT looks like a home run, or at least a good fit. But Zach was a bust, yes, no question. Elijah Moore, okay, that didn't work out. It looked good, but it didn't work out. Like Michael Carter the second is a home run, right? And even like Pinnock, and then the others, the deeper draft was good. Even Michael Carter 1 was okay, and then I don't know, he just faded out because of his size and the injury that he sustained in his rookie year, right? 2022 home run, right? 2023 too hard to tell, right? So like I would just want to I wanted to play out, right? And I think getting elite versus like a bunch of really good, if Jets were more in a rebuild, I would say they would have made the trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not, right? So like they just want their guy. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and I think that's the point with Fashional, right? Is that he's ready to play. I think, right? If Tyron Smith misses time, I think he's ready to step in and be a big time contributor, which is what they needed out of this draft, right? I think any of those later round tackles, those are project guys. Those are guys that you aren't sure if they're going to be ready to step in, And then I think Corley, he gives them an element that none of their receivers have. So I think in the first 3 rounds, I think they did well. Outside of that, I mean, Braylon Allen looks like he's going to be a beast if you take into account minicamp and everything. So I think this was, Stigers looks incredible from everything that I'm seeing. And this regime, if anything, they can draft defensive backs, So I think that it was a good draft. I think it's interesting conversation looking at the trade offer. But at the end of the day, I think they did the right thing standing pat, taking, a blue chip tackle, and we'll kind of go from there. So I think they did the right thing.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess we can go into the little signing that the Jets did, right? That just happened very recently, but basically the Jets signed Takkarist McKinley, who's a former first rounder, and guess what he plays? Edge.
He's an edge, yeah.
He's an edge, which is interesting. I think it's a depth signing, but he's just very interesting.
Yeah, that was my thought. It's a depth signing. I don't think he's competing with even McDonald or anything of that level. That's kind of like a second level guy that is gonna see the field sometimes.
Yeah, but he's a little interesting, right? So like he's a first round talent. He had one really big year. Well, I guess I don't know if we want to call it a big year, getting 8 sacks basically. And then he had a 3.5 sack year, and he suffered a shoulder injury and put on IR, and then tore his Achilles with the Raiders, right? Which kind of, with the Browns, after he signed another contract with the Browns and was playing in 2021 with them. And he hasn't really done much since. It's probably low cost, really cheap, practice squad guy, right? It's basically what he's going to be. Maybe they can develop him because Jets are pretty good at that, right?
Right.
So I don't know. I don't see anything of it. Maybe
that was. By the way, I'm glad you brought that up because just to kind of throw back to what we were talking about earlier with Reddick, that was one of my other reasons why I don't see us giving him a big fat long-term deal of any kind, because we're actually good at that.
Factory. We're
actually good at that. We can develop players on defense. Who knew? The Jets can develop talent, because for all these years, it's like we sign these people, they go, we sign them, they go, we sign them, they go, or they bust. And it's like now we're actually bringing people in, UDFAs like Huff and, all these rookies, and they're coming in and, not even necessarily the guys that are projected to be amazing. And they're coming in and they're playing lights out football on our defense. So, credit to Saleh, we're due. Credit to Ulbrich, we're due. Yeah.
Add on anything there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, depth signing doesn't hurt to add another first round pedigree, to the, pass rush position. Depth, if anything, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep, more or less.
And he's had 2 6-sack plus years. I mean, the guy can definitely do something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't know much about him until the signing happened. So, I mean, like, yeah, let's just see what happens. I wouldn't think much of it, although if he, makes the sack in the Super Bowl, that wins us the game by all means. Okay, cool. Like, yeah. I guess that might be wrapping it up, and we just have a little bit of an announcement for next week's show. And this was credit to the Jets media and content creator draft idea that I had. But more credit to Monty for basically putting in a little bit more work in terms of like reaching out to them. But Michael Nania from Jets X Factor is coming on next week, and I have a little bit of a friendly relationship with him on Twitter and all that. But Monty, he liked Monty more, because Monty drafted him.
I've drafted him first round.
I don't think was he your first round pick?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good first round pick. So. I mean, I took Connor Hughes because I want to golf. Probably going to go golfing right after this and all that. But we're excited for Nania. I'm not sure how that conversation is going to go. It's going to be some serious and then maybe some wacky fun stuff that maybe he doesn't get the liberties of doing with, his current platform. So we're going to just have some fun with that and all that, right? It's going to be cool. But anyway, I guess from then we'll go to final thoughts.
All right, I'll jump in. Slow news week = media silliness is my final thought headline there, because that's kind of what this is. I mean, we don't have a ton of good news, right now, a ton of things for the media to sink their teeth into. We've got an overabundance of reporters who don't have shit to do. And we're seeing that play out now with, things that are essentially nothing burgers getting blown up into, entire value meals. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. I'm just like, I'm so over it. I just can't wait till we start winning some games and, our playoff bound and are, all the things that this team should be and can be with this roster that we have painstakingly put together over the last few years. And, even if we don't necessarily make it super deep in the playoffs, like to the championship game, I still think we'll be in a good spot for the year after. And I'm just not even trying to give too much credence to these things. However, as I mentioned, my worry level will have a propensity to shoot up, if continued reports keep coming out and more tangible evidence comes out that Aaron Rodgers isn't Aaron Rodgers and is kind of messing around, or that Reddick is really serious about not playing and it turns into a nasty dispute. But as of right now, we have no evidence that either of those things are the case, in my opinion. So it's just brush it off, Jets fans. Don't let them try to bait you. Just like Reddick said in his tweet. Don't eat up the nonsense. Don't fall for the BS. Let's just stay the course. Let's keep supporting our Jets. And it's as of now, all signs point to this still being a good year for us ahead.
What's your overall panic level on the 2024 season?
Overall panic level on 2024 season is a 1. We have no major, knock on wood, people getting unable to play for any reason. I don't even want to say the I word. We have no major contract disputes yet of players that are like super important to us. We have our offense in place, we have another year of the coaching staff. We have another year of a lot of these players playing together. It's just, I don't know. All signs, in my opinion, point to, as of now, this being a good season for us. And I stick to my projection that I had, in our episode a few episodes back when we kind of projected what the team would do and what games we would win when the schedule came out. And if you haven't seen that, check out that episode. It's a good episode. And by the way, if you haven't liked, commented and subscribed yet, please do so. We appreciate you.
None.
Yeah, I think just real quick, I would say panic overall is very low. Annoyance is very high. And, that is what we've kind of come to expect from the Jets, is for them to be annoying and frustrating. And I think that going into this season, they do have an opportunity to kind of turn all of that around. Now, I think no matter what they do, the national media will never like this team. The national media is going to, hate on Rodgers no matter what he does. So I think that's something to be prepared for. Reddick, needs to just get in here. They need to come to a compromise. I think he'll be here for camp. But like Monty said, who knows what's going to come out in the next, 6 weeks before that happens. Outside of that, looking forward to Nania coming on. That's going to be this Tuesday. So that'll be interesting. Definitely will be fun talking to him. Brings kind of a different perspective from what we do here. So it'll be nice to have that. And like John said, we'll have some fun with him as well. So yeah, I think in terms of season success, as long as Rodgers and Reddick get resolved here quickly, I have zero concerns about this team.
Yeah, I am not on panic mode, just like Belichick is right now in retirement, just with a nice young 24-year-old girlfriend. I am not panicked at all whatsoever. I'm just gonna do it real quick. That's what she looks like. She is fine. Okay.
You had to do it literally just because we said not to. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. I had to, but good for Bell. I mean, that basically just tells you that we're never gonna have to see him again in the NFL, which is just great. But basically, yeah, I'm just it's a boring sports cycle right now. We're doing our best to make it at least a little bit entertaining and filled with some laughs here and there and like that and all that. So just sit tight, Jets fans. It's gonna be a fun season. Hopefully it doesn't end 4 offensive snaps in basically. And all that. So let's just have fun and just enjoy it, right? Let's not panic. Yeah, let's enjoy the ride and not interrupt John during his freaking final thoughts, right? And all that. But basically, I'm just looking forward to it. I mean, it's primo golf season right now, so check out what's going on at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst #2. That's just always a blast. It's actually nearby Adnan's neck of the woods right now. He should have Airbnb'd his house for thousands of dollars, basically, but he didn't do that. But it's okay. But anyway, fun shows coming up, the Nania stuff, and also we got a squad of Dolphin fans that we're just gonna rip for about a half an hour. It's gonna be loud and obnoxious, and Monty's in charge of setting that up as our chief communications officer. So we're looking forward to that. I've designated. Yeah, you are the marketing officer, so yeah, there you go. And all that, and Adnan is the chief compliance officer. But in the meantime, just remember to say it every time you go to sleep, guys. Fuck the Patriots. Fuck the Dolphins.
Fuck
the Bills.
And go
Jets. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.